she's pretty legit.
Are you ready? We're on. It's on.
Let's do
Chris
this.
Chris and Friends podcast, episode 5. I'm here with my friend Megan Duerring, who we just were talking. I don't think we've seen each other probably in like 4.5 years. Last time your daughter was 5.5, you said. This time she's 10.
Yeah.
And we're also talking about our mutual friend, Min.
Yeah.
Our friend
yes.
got a message. It was like, hey, how did you two know each other? It was through kid stuff.
That was fun.
And then that kind of kickstarted the podcast. So here we are. We're back at it.
Cool. Yeah.
So we did this. Episode 20 of a previous podcast was like a while ago now,
Yeah.
right? So I think if you wanted to hear anything about, I don't know, we'll probably discuss some repeat topics,
Sure.
I guess. But just to get a quick background on things, I think Megan and I met at a gym that's now closed.
Yeah, just closed.
LA Fitness in
right?
Easton was like, I feel like everybody went there at some point in time.
It's my second home at some point,
Yeah.
right?
And then at that time you were working in schools?
Yep.
In schools and also training.
Yeah, I was.
So we have to say that Megan is just licensed. What's your title?
I'm a licensed professional counselor.
Okay.
And I have a private practice providing mental health therapy.
Is it all telehealth?
I actually do some in person.
Okay.
I do mainly telehealth. I have some in person in my home office, and sometimes I do walk and talks, which I love, which is literally walk and talk. So it's you walk and provide therapy, which definitely holds up with my thought on exercise is really a lot of good therapy.
Do you know that? Do you know the book Spark? About it talked about kids a lot and like getting physical activity in the schools. It talked about.
So I don't, but
cognitive behavior therapy coupled with walking was like a big thing.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just what popped into my mind. What were you gonna say there? Sorry.
I don't know, but that's okay.
Okay.
I think
There's
we're on the same
basically,
page. So.
they refer to exercise as like miracle grow for the brain.
Yeah.
So this BDNF kind of gets fired up. The brain's all lit up. These kids then would have 0-hour PE before school, and they didn't do any more tutoring, any more classwork, but their grades automatically self-corrected, all because they added some physical activity in the morning. So, when you do the walk and talks, how long are the walks? Are they
So
like
we
30
walk
minutes
for we walk for the full hour.
So it's an hour.
It's awesome. Yeah.
On the trail, on the sidewalk.
So we kind of pick where we go, depending on their level of comfort, depending on if we might run into somebody that they know in the community.
Yeah.
So we try to be strategic about it, but mainly it could be anywhere.
Could it be at a horse farm? We have some trails
It
here.
could be. That'd be cool
nice.
Because we wouldn't run into anyone.
Yeah, that's true.
Horses won't talk about us.
And every time, I feel like every episode I somehow bring up how cool horses are, but they do have. Do you know anybody that does like equine?
So I do. Yeah,
therapy?
a lot of people do that. They believe in it, and I do too, because I think that people have a real connection to animals, and I think it's really special.
Yeah.
I personally don't have that, which is why I don't offer something like that. I didn't grow up with animals, so my level of comfort is not there with them. I don't speak their language, but there are some people that just absolutely, feel calm with animals.
And I would see it anywhere from like, somebody recovering with some sort of dependency, like addiction dependency.
Sure,
to
absolutely.
Like girls that might have had something, like younger girls that might have had some sort of incident that really affected their self-esteem or emotional side of, not emotional side, but whatever. You get what I'm saying. And yes, apparently the horse is like an animal that you have to feed. Yeah, it's give and take. They really sense what you're putting out. You don't
I think so too. Yeah.
Which is cool. Anyway, so walk and talks, equine therapy, and weightlifting is what we could all offer out here.
Yeah.
Now, you said you didn't grow up around animals a lot, but last time we talked, you said something that kind of blew my mind. As a 9-year-old, 5:55 mile.
Yeah.
Right. So you grew up in track and field for the most part. Any other sports like that?
No, I was, let's see, I think I shot the wrong basket for the wrong team in basketball, and that's what I knew. I'm like, I'm forward motion only, so I stuck with what I was good at.
And then that led to a career in the world of running.
It did, yeah, very up and down.
Yeah.
Which I think is normal. Looking back on it, it wasn't easy at the time to go through the downs, because I didn't have anyone to tell me like, hey, you're gonna experience down times. You're gonna experience bad races. That doesn't mean you're a bad runner. So that's why talking about this stuff is so important to me, to let people know you can't be at your best all the time, because if you are, then you're going to fizzle out at some point. And if you take a look at some of the people that are top notch, very few of them keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something that, the word I talked about it in the last episode, which is why I feel like I'm being redundant, but it was like catastrophizing is what the thing was, where it's like, hey, I got the math problem wrong, so I'm terrible at math.
Right.
It's like defining yourself by the
By what-
latest thing, but it's usually never the best thing. It's always when it's a negative, I feel like sometimes too.
Very true.
So then you ran throughout high school, college, and all that.
Yeah.
I think LA Fitness times when we first met, I feel like you were still competing, right?
I
And you
was, yeah.
were considered a professional.
Like, sort of.
Yeah.
I ran for a year. I trained for a year professionally while I was sponsored to train for the Olympic trials. I made the
year?
time qualifying. Oh, man.
Sorry.
You're making me
I'm
so
gonna
old.
just write it down.
Don't
No,
just
just
pretend you
kidding.
didn't know.
You can
let's
write
see.
it here.
That
Percent.
was 2005.
So 2005.
So yeah.
Where would you have? Where were those games that year?
Oh my gosh, I never actually, I got the Olympic qualifying time, but never went. I got too nervous. I was like, who am I? Who do I think I am?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just was like, I can't line up on, the line with these, ladies that are way more legit than me. Because I trained on my own and I did everything on my own, and, I just didn't have the confidence to go forward with it.
When you, was that somewhat of a turning point in your running career? Or did you keep running?
I did keep running,
Kept training
and
after that,
I thought, okay, well, maybe I am good, and then what I did, Chris, was I took myself a little too seriously and I trained way harder, and that didn't result in anything positive at all.
Okay.
When I trained myself and had a coach guiding me through that, which he and I are still in touch today, he was great, but I still doubted myself, and I was like, oh, I should do more. And really, it resulted in injury. It resulted in going slower. I was not any better. And so more does not equal better.
There was, in our last episode, I was asking you about if I were to run a marathon. You were like, you would be fine on the first one because you would hire a coach to help you, but then on the second one you would coach yourself and you would probably hurt yourself.
I have to bring this up.
Were you speaking from your own experience?
I gotta bring this up though. Actually, this is funny. So I remember at LA Fitness, I love referencing our times. And I remember you saying, okay, well, what do you think of this method? And you gave me some sort of approach to training for the marathon. I was like, yeah, no, not at all.
Well, I would just read and then I guess just throw stuff at the wall and see if anything sticks. I don't know.
Yeah, you were awesome at, your craft, and I appreciate that. And you knew things that other people just didn't. But running, Chris, you needed a little help on that one back in the time. But hey, you know what?
I never ran. I probably will never do a marathon, so it's okay, I think.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Maybe a half marathon, I could roll out of bed and
you probably
get
could.
myself to get prepared for something like that, but not in my wheelhouse, I don't think. Partly because of that, what we're just saying, it's very easy to kind of overdo it.
Very easy, yeah.
You go a little bit, and then you want to go a little bit more. I've had these conversations with people that want to get themselves almost over-prepared, so, but then you don't need to be over-prepared,
no.
You just need to be prepared.
Honestly, it's better to be under-prepared for a big race like that, because then your body is not just ready to break down mid-race, which, we were just talking about marathoning in my last marathon. I had a hamstring injury going into it. I knew that, and at mile 8, I felt it start to pull, so I decided to just keep going until mile 18, where I totally tore it. And I limped my way back to, not the finish line, to somewhere where I could get an escort. I couldn't walk. So,
was that in the back of your mind about, is the not finishing part in the back of your mind in that race?
Yeah.
Or for weeks maybe leading up to it even?
It was like mourning a loss, honestly. It was my first race I didn't finish, and I trained really well. My training was great. But, looking back, clearly, hindsight, I trained too much. I overtrained.
Yeah. And I wanted to almost use this episode a little bit to have like a little revisionist history, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some things, before we went on here, just working with different types of kids, and everybody has their own different life experiences. And I think our life experiences kind of lead us to where we are today, right? And who we are. And I think there was a few things last time that I thought were pretty important that, one that I'd share with other people was some of the advice that you got from your coaches in college about almost like a body type thing or a body image thing. And I always keep that in mind, and I always share stories like that. I had to make sure I got it right, because I've been telling people a story And I'm like, I have to make sure I'm doing this story justice, that, you know, everything that you say as a coach matters, right? And
Absolutely,
you could say, you could coach for 100 years and say 100,000 things to kids that you're probably never going to remember, but the kids remember, you know? Is there any, I mean, do you want to go into any of the running stuff?
We can go into
college? Is that
whatever.
okay?
Yeah,
Sure?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you want me to lead you in this
You ask
direction?
whatever you want to
All right,
ask. I can talk about it, whatever.
This is what I want to talk about then.
Yeah.
Stuff with getting prepared for running, getting pressure put on you from a coach to look a certain way,
Yeah.
lose X amount of pounds,
Right.
things like that. What did that do? Like, if you even want to share what the coach may have said, or just
Sure.
like what some of
Sure.
that stuff does, how it affects a kid and
Yeah.
literally the rest of their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, some of the comments were, you know, water is less calories than juice. So choose water when you go, you know, to the dining hall. And, oh, hey, Megan, you probably would run faster if you dropped a few pounds. And at that time, I was a really healthy weight. I was like, I don't know, first of all, I'm 5'8". I think I was like 124 pounds. And I remember thinking to myself, like, well, okay. You know, so there began the cycle of an unhealthy relationship with food.
Yeah.
And so...
Was it there before at all?
Not to that extent at all. Just a little bit. I think being a female in general just leads to some unhealthy thoughts about food, because you hear messages from society, from family members, just you see things. So I think a lot of females have an unhealthy relationship with their body and what food does to their body and what your body needs to look like. I mean, if you take a look at some of the really awesome runners, are they lean? Yeah, as a result of what they do. But some of the awesome runners, they're not ripped, right? So like, you don't necessarily have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, there is science to being lighter is faster, certainly, but to what point, right? So like, you really have to understand how to fuel your body appropriately so that you're still performing at optimal, you know, you're optimal. Right.
And if and we're just talking about the overtraining or undertraining part of it, if you are undernourishing, then
Sure.
it's kind of like no matter what you do,
It doesn't matter.
Your body's going to be in that stressed,
Totally.
overtrained state.
Absolutely.
And then females have different, you know, I mean, they just have a different hormonal
Right. So the
situation
female
that-
triad, which is like, you know, you will lose your menstrual period. And so like the body will preserve its energy, saying like, hey, you cannot carry a child, right? You lose your period, you start losing your hair, you start getting, you know, a lot of things going wrong, dry skin. And certainly that's like, oh, whatever, you know, when you're younger, you don't think about those things until, well, you get a little bit older and then you have complications if you want to start a family, which, you know, is a reality of life and a reality of things that women deal with in the sport. And it's certainly not just running. I think there's a lot of sports that contribute to, you know, females feeling that pressure to look a certain way in order to perform a certain way.
And I have a interest in maybe asking some questions here, just because of working with some kids and hearing just stories of not necessarily anybody that I know, but just in general, like things like disordered eating in a female population, or just how to broach that subject. Not literally to them, but like how do you even handle a situation where, like, what do you do if you hear something like that, or somebody in the community is like, hey, we think something's going on with this kid. Is there anything that you, as like a therapist, would, if it's a friend, say it's a 15-year-old kid saying, hey, I think my friend has this, or a parent saying, I'm worried about my child, is there some steps to take? Or
Gosh, yeah, I mean, I would feel like I was, you know, I mean, I always want to help, right? So I always think I'd rather ask the question than not. And, you know, sometimes people are not ready to receive that help. But if you place that sort of in their lap and saying like, hey, you know, are you okay? You can start with that. You don't have to say, hey, you know, I hear you have a problem with food. No, if you just check in with them, and maybe they don't respond to you right away, but the way that I explain change, and this goes with any topic, whether it be like receiving help, whether it be, you know, using a strategy for coping, or, you know, getting into a healthy relationship with food, or working out, I always describe it as a fashion trend, right? So like a new fashion trend comes out, and, you know, you look at it, and like skinny jeans, for example, when they first came out, I was like, those are disgusting. I will never wear those. They're so gross. And then, you know, you see people wearing them for a little bit of time, and then you see somebody, you know, like personally wearing them, like, they look cute on her. And then, you know, a couple weeks later, you see commercials, and you're like, you know, those look really nice. but they're not for me. And then a month later, you're like, I need a pair of skinny jeans.
Yeah.
Sometimes the seed just needs to be planted for you to just, you know, have a readiness to go. So if you say to a kid, hey, are you okay? Maybe a month later, they'll come to you and say, hey, Chris, you know what? No, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
So.
No, I could see how that works, and I don't know if that kind of idea is not something I would cognitively be able to relate, but I think, you know, I was talking to some families this week, and it was like every kid, I don't know, every day that I do something, it's like it's a blank slate. So I don't kind of let the previous stuff affect how you treat somebody today. So, you know, even if somebody is kind of going through something for a few weeks, I'm not going to let things from the past kind of affect whether or not I go check in on somebody or say hello to somebody, you know. So I do try to keep some things like that in mind, because we had an incident where it was like, no matter what, you have to talk, you have to show respect. And even if the kid doesn't want to hear it, it's still your job as a teacher. It's still your job as a coach.
Definitely.
It's still your job as a person to say, hey, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, you can't really ever give up. And I feel like that's kind of similar in that regard, right? Where it's like, you want to build the trust with them, let them know that you care.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then eventually one day when they are ready.
Yeah, they come.
But I guess you have to wait
They
till,
will.
I mean, what about if it's, you know, you don't want it to be too late either, you know?
Very
So,
true,
I
yeah.
don't know what you do about that.
Well, some
there
kids
might not be an answer either.
There
Yeah.
really is no good,
Yeah.
there really isn't. But, you know, for what we do as adults, right, we're role modeling is number one. Role model that positive, you know, respect for other people. And for kids nowadays, you know, when we were growing up, it was like, you respect me because I'm an adult. Kids don't act like that anymore, you know, and I appreciate that. We need to earn their respect. And I, as a therapist, when I first start seeing kids, I make it very clear, like, you don't have to trust me. I have to earn their trust.
Yeah.
And I don't mind if they're like, I'm not telling you anything. That's okay. That's okay. That's their safe space. And eventually they warm up. And if they don't, that's okay too. You know, everybody has their way of communicating whatever message it is they want. But when they want help, you know, they stick around. So I do have some kids that come to therapy. Sometimes they say nothing. And they've been coming to me for 3 years. I'm like, well, I must be doing something right? They're looking for some sort of connection, some sort of guidance, some message of saying like, hey, you're worth it. I'm gonna show up for you every week too.
You talk to them, it's just never about anything.
Sometimes.
It's not at the root, really.
Sometimes
Usually,
I'll try, you know what I do, Chris?
But you chat though, it's not just like you sit there for an hour.
You know what we do? No.
Some kids just want to talk to somebody.
Sometimes they just want
And
to
they just
chat
need an
and they
ear, yeah.
want to talk about
And whatever,
life.
even though they're
We
not getting to it, like that is
But
still
they
helping
are.
that kid.
But
Yeah.
you can be tricky with it. So you can play like would you rathers, or hey, if I were a boat, what, you know, and we play the game, like you ask these really random questions, like what if you were a boat, if you were a yacht, what would you name yourself?
Yeah.
And you get a lot of information from questions like that. And would you rathers, they love that. They love that stuff. And
I
so it's
remember
fun.
once we had a poll going of what's more likely, ghosts or aliens.
Right.
And
Kids
then
love
kids
that.
get fired up.
They love it.
And then
yeah.
if they're the kids
yeah.
not talking,
yeah.
they'll probably get
They
chime in
start
for that.
talking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's an interesting thing there. That's a good one there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like when you see that, I think we talked about like just growing up, like even with the adults, but then like the coach side of things, like nowadays a parent might see a coach or a teacher or somebody talking to a child that way and they're like, what the hell they're talking, you know?
Right.
Not like this like enforcer or disciplinarian type thing. And I never, my personality was never that anyway. So I always felt like I would work with people that wanted it to be like this like old school thing. And I was like, something's missing here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's not like, I mean, kids are different, but also the people that raise the kids are different. So the adults are different.
Yeah.
And then the grandparents are different than they were in
yeah.
previous decades. So it's like, I don't like to point fingers at the kids. I don't be like, well, kids these days are
Right. I know.
they're soft.
I know.
You know, people throw all these things out there, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I don't think so. You raised some kids too. Maybe it's like the person saying that is probably responsible also
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the way certain things are. But and then that was one that you know, I don't have personal like firsthand experience with like the disordered eating type stuff with working with anybody yet. But I do wonder sometimes when you work with kids, like some of these things are going to come up. I think at some point.
They do.
Or even
they
like
do.
anything to look forward to. You know, I often wonder. Like, is there any warning signs? Like, you know, you see somebody looking at themselves like a lot. Is there anything like that out there?
So
that
there's
you're like,
definitely some warning signs that you can look at, yeah. And by the way, this doesn't only affect, it does primarily affect girls
Right.
more, but not all the time. There are boys, there are males that are, you know, that struggle with it as well.
There's a great coach. His name's Brett Bartholomew. I mean, he wrote in his book, he was like, skin and bones as a high school kid, soccer player, totally disordered, you know.
Right.
And he
And
was
nobody
trying to raise
probably
awareness.
asked, right?
No,
Yeah.
because yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's all good.
But
I think it's
honestly,
relevant to
that
talk
was
about.
7 or 8 years ago that was even put on my
Yeah,
radar, and I was, 30, whatever. you
Right.
know? So
Yeah, so, I think there are signs. I think when, kids start to isolate, some kids like to be alone, and that's not a bad thing. But when a kid is a change in behavior, so when a kid is normally, social and then they start to isolate, there's a sign. Certainly watching their attitude around food or, being at a team dinner and kind of observing some behaviors, signs. That doesn't always indicate a problem, but it could, so really look for changes in behavior in kids if you're suspecting something. But if a kid is consistently alone and isolating and there's no change, that doesn't mean there's a problem. Not everyone likes to be social, and that's okay. That's okay. But, take a look at they might try to give away, their snacks. They might try to be like, oh, I'm not hungry, or, oh, I already ate. Those are big things that people do when they're trying to avoid. If you offer food or other kids are eating, or you're at a team meal and they're like, oh, I ate before I came. Oh, I'm not hungry today. Oh, my stomach hurts. Things like that.
Yeah.
Just avoiding, the topic at all and avoiding foods. Those are signs to look for.
And then as a runner and in that community, how aware is everybody?
Pretty aware. I mean, look, I can take a look. I can just look at somebody and know now if they have an eating disorder or not, because of my experience with treating eating disorders and then being around them as a runner. Certainly, I right away.
Isn't that interesting that I don't know. I don't want to say this as if it's some sort of special skill or something, but there's sometimes that you can look at somebody and you can just tell whether or not that they are maybe on something.
I think it is a special skill. So I think
And
you need to give
like
yourself
in your case
credit,
of that.
because I think you can tell. I think when you are genuinely concerned and you are genuinely looking at people like, I want to know you, you see signs like that in people, and it could be a total stranger. This happens all the time when I'm out in the community. I really just like connecting with people. And sometimes, I will go up to a random person and just say, hey, if I notice something that is off, or I feel like they need a smile. And I'm telling you, Chris, so many times it results in a complete conversation and them confiding in me, or them sharing something with me, and then them thanking me for my time, and vice versa. Look, there are people in the community that I'm like, hey, thanks for your time, thanks for listening. So it goes both ways.
Well, this is somewhat related, but a couple weeks ago, some dude was banging on the drum, makeshift drum, by whatever, Fasties. It's right off 78 exit down there. And then we went to the supermarket and we said, like, I'm gonna get this guy a coffee. It's freezing cold. And then we got him this little sandwich, and then I go there, and it was like the happiest I've ever seen somebody. And he was like, hey man, thank you,
Exactly.
Oh, this is like, he wasn't like, hey, I'm on the street and I'm depressed. He was like grateful.
Thankful.
I'm like, oh dude, I could use that today, and I was like, well, that was incredible. So
It is. I love that story.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't know who that, better served as like a good reminder to
I know,
make somebody
absolutely.
peace
I
of mind.
agree.
Yeah.
People say all the time, like, oh, Megan, how do you hear people's, issues, and how do you work with, I have some individuals that have debilitating illnesses, and it's like, yeah, they impact me, of course, but it makes me look and think about my life as like, all right, what do I need to be grateful for today? What do I need to think about today in order to give myself that sense of purpose? Because mental health is a workout. It's just like lifting weights. If you let it go, you're not healthy. You're not mentally, sound. Like your emotions need work too. So does your body. So you gotta get up and move to stay in shape. Well, you also have to work on your mental health and well-being.
That's kind of been a point of emphasis, I think, this year for myself with, it's like, I don't know how many times like the thing you said about the kid where you have to just keep planting a seed. It's like, I don't know how many times I need to see about being grateful and having gratitude and doing all of these things, and then, you just kind of ignored it. So like, this has been a year where I'm like, hey, the other day I was telling some parents at this school pickup, I was like, somebody was explaining our farm, and I was like, you know what, it is nice. I was like, usually I just think about it as like work needs to be done. I see all of the things that has to get done, and then on Tuesday this week, I'm like, the sun was coming up, the animals were out, and it was just so nice out, and I was like, this is really nice. So I told somebody this, and the other mom had a farm as well, and she's like, yeah, how's that working for you? And I was like, well, it's only been 2 days.
Right.
I've been grateful.
I love that. Well, you know, here's
so I'm like
the
3
dust
days
settles.
in now.
Look,
So I'm 3 days strong.
But you're.
All right.
Let's celebrate.
Which you got to start somewhere.
But you're allowed. Look. If you're gonna throw, you're allowed to have a pity party. But if you're throwing your own pity party, you got to clean it up too. So you have to get yourself out of that. But you're allowed to have those moments because guess what, Chris? You're human.
True. Good
You
point.
know, we're all human and we all have what I call the dust settles. Like, yeah, I can move to Florida, which by the way, yes, I'll go. But I'm sure at some point, like after I love the warm weather and celebrate being in the warmth, I'm sure I'll find the same mundane stuff that I'm not happy about every day too. So, you know, the dust settles all the time, no matter where you go. The happiness just doesn't come. Happiness is a choice that you have to work on.
There's a lot of, we talked a little bit anyway, at least at the end of the last one. It's been like 10 years since my brother died, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, there was always this idea of like moving to Florida, moving somewhere else. I got to get out of this town. And sometimes a change of environment probably does help somebody, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think what you said there, like the dust still settles. If you don't figure out what's going on on the inside here, you know, it's not gonna, the problems aren't gonna get resolved, I guess, right?
They're not. They're not.
So it's a good reminder with all that, right? That's another one then that I struggle with too, is trying to get like working with some younger kids, like how to get the kids to understand that it's not the external things, it's not the like this past other week I was like, it's not this Stanley mug that you got
I know,
that doesn't make it cool,
right. I know.
Like you don't,
it's hard.
You don't, How do you think? I don't even know if it's if you even have something on this. Do you work with kids primarily? Or
I work with all ages.
Right.
Yeah,
so I'm asking you all
ages.
these kid questions because I guess
that's
that's what I'm
okay.
working
That's
with.
cool.
But like, how do you get somebody? Obviously, you just keep peppering it, like putting it in their ears, right? But like, the focus on the inside has been a tough one for me, and I don't know how to.
Yeah. So what? And that's a hard one because if you look back, right, like we all needed some of those things too. So I support the kids needing some things to kind of like, you know,
not
like,
be ostracized.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Not get made fun of. Not, you know, not be ostracized. Yeah, like you said. But I also think that it's important to ask kids like, hey, you know, instead of saying, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I mean, things change. Did you think that, you know, you could be a programmer of AI when you were growing up? No.
Right.
So everything changes. So I always ask, hey, what kind of an impact do you want to have on this world, like as you age? And you know, you'll get some answers from kids that way, and then you learn about their core values. So I always talk very heavily about core values and letting your core values drive your decisions and represent you in your daily life. So if a kid says, like I would say, well, I just want to help people. Well, is me going out to get 8 Stanley Cups helping people? No. Is that my core value? No. Can I have one? Sure, yeah, I'll get one, but why do I need, you know, a ton of them? That is not me leading my life with my core value. So that's when I would say to a kid like, hey, is getting 7 Stanley Cups really helping people? Are you living your life according to your core values?
So they define them.
Yeah.
They define their core values, and then when something violates it,
I'm
gonna use that. I made a note. Minute 27.
Yeah.
I have to re-listen to that because I'm going to use it as the next.
It's awesome. I love talking to core values, and sometimes you're going to have to give examples.
But even what's the impact you want on the world? Just that question by itself.
Yeah.
Right? I mean.
Yeah, I love that question.
Yeah. That is good. I like it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
This is my own teaching.
Well, listen, for core values, by the way, sometimes adults are like, I don't even know what a core value is. So it's not just kids. Mm-hmm. I do this with adults too. And I'm like, what are your core values? I don't know. You know, and we go through them, and I'm like, are you living your life, you know, leading, you know, with your core values? And sometimes I'll say, if somebody were to look at you, if somebody looks at me, mm-hmm. right, and I say to you, Chris, like, here, let's play the game right now. Chris, what do you think? Because I already said helping people, so you can't use that one. What do you think, you know, my other 2, and there's lots of core values, but what if I had top 3? What would you, how am I representing my other 2 core values? What do you think?
Wait, I'm going to guess.
Yes, you are. We're playing it right now.
I have to guess your 2.
You
have
do.
2. So, one is, what did you say already?
Helping other people.
Helping other people. You're helping me today, which is nice. So, helping other people is 1. Core value is to is having respect for people. A core value.
Yeah, right? You could.
And I think probably treating somebody. I don't know. You know, human beings are like everybody's a human, right? So everybody has the ability to do something great, and I think you probably treat people in a way with the like you believe in their abilities. Like you don't go into a
Okay.
situation, I think,
Right.
probably.
I
So I
think
don't know how
you're
to word
cheating.
that.
That's respect too. So I
Is
think
it?
you still have another one.
No, that, all right.
No.
What do you want me to name? Carol, name the Quaker tenets for my
I
daughter,
know,
guys.
right?
Simplicity, peace,
Well, so right. so-
integrity,
right,
community,
exact-
equality,
there, exactly.
stewardship.
Right.
That's what they do.
Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I think, I value hard work, right? I value hard work because I don't think that people should just be, gifted things. Yes, do I want to be gifted?
Do you know what you said
certain
last
things?
podcast?
What?
You said about this hard work, and you said, people say something about,
Oh, Megan, you're so lucky.
yeah, and you were like, yeah, I want to punch you in the
Yeah,
face.
I do. I want to.
Get up at
I-
3:45
right.
or something. And I was
still-
like, oh wow.
I still
That was
want to
good. That was
punch them.
aggressive. You should maybe you need one of those rooms with smash.
I know.
Where you smash
Yeah, well,
stuff.
that's where my running
a
comes.
thing?
Running. I transfer the pain to my body
Right.
when I run. So, yeah, I still, that
Hard
is
work.
definitely one of my core values is hard work. I think that you put in the time, and you don't always have to win. It's not what I'm saying, but hard work results in that sense of accomplishment, and that I did that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's everything that I've when I would read about stuff, self-efficacy, right? It's
Right.
Self-esteem. It's like that's a rope. It might take you 9 weeks to climb it, but if you do that,
Right.
you're gonna feel so much better
Yes.
about yourself.
Right.
That other kid might have climbed it the first day, but that's whatever. They just have some
Right.
climbing ability that they were just able to roll out of bed and do
Exactly.
whatever.
And not
they didn't
everyone
work
has
for
the
it.
same.
You did.
Right.
You
and
did.
not everyone has the same. And not
Well, no,
everyone's
that kid
hard.
also never worked 9 weeks. Maybe that kid might have never worked 9 weeks to do anything.
And they may not know how to work hard after
yeah.
that. So, I do think that there's something to be said. Like, I know how to overcome barriers.
Yeah.
Because I always have had to.
Mhm.
When people don't know how to do that, they get to a barrier and they're like, all right, I give up. I don't know what to do.
So what do you do then? As this is a parent question, right? You have a young daughter. She's
Yeah.
10 years old.
Yeah.
I think your mind, based off of what I know of you, is like you could see something clicking people sometimes, but they're just gonna go, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be uncomfortable, and they're not gonna stop. Their legs might be dead, their lungs might be burning,
Yep.
whatever, but they just have something that clicks. I feel like you have that. Is that fair?
I do. I
Yes.
definitely have that. Yeah.
So you have that. Hard work is one of
I
your
do.
main tenets. How do you implement that how do you encourage a child to work hard but not be like over?
I
like,
know,
Don't be
gosh.
like you. I think are a bit of an outlier.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that allowed you to push yourself
I agree.
physically, mentally, whatever over the
Yes.
years. Now,
Yeah.
what do you do then when you got a little
When you have a child
10-year-old?
that doesn't have that.
I'm not saying that yours
She doesn't. She
Okay.
doesn't. It's hard. It is hard. Here's what I do. That's such a good question, and I have
Thank
to
you.
remind myself. Yeah, it is because I don't want to place my core values onto her. I want her to have some of my core values,
Yeah.
yes, as my
Good point.
child, right? I
Right.
want her to be a good human, but she doesn't have what she does not have what I had. Like, I would go behind a wall and cry because nobody's going to see me cry, and then I'm going to come back out. I'm going to push even harder to get the job done. She doesn't have that, so I have to ask myself, well, do I want an anxious kid or a happy kid? And every time I answer myself, I want a happy kid. So that's when I back off, and
So
that's
why
when
would
I
you have
let
an
her.
anxious kid though in that case?
Well, if
in that
I'm like,
situation?
you need to work harder, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if I tell
I just wanted
her,
to ask that if there was a
Thank you.
parent out there,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
why does my kid have anxiety? It's like maybe there are some things that we're doing,
that creative,
as a parent or as a
absolutely,
grown-up. So
absolutely. So the
do I want
world
an anxious
is
kid or a
tough,
happy kid?
right? I
Happy
ask
kid is
myself,
always the answer, huh?
and that's with I'll ask my child, what drives mommy nuts? She goes, a mess. And by the way, she's a chaotic mess. And I'm like, exactly. And then I think to myself, well, wait, is a mess really that bad? Can she have one dirty room? Yeah, she can't have 5.
Yeah.
But I say, do I want an anxious kid or a really clean kid or a happy kid? And so I have to remind myself to find that balance on how to motivate her without creating that anxiety.
Because this is related, but it's a totally different example. But I forget who I was listening to, but they had such problem. Their father I think was an alcoholic. So
Ooh, those
their
are
whole
tough.
life,
Yeah.
they just said,
People pleasers.
right, they just said whatever was gonna not feel the wrath
Yeah,
of their dad.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if it's like if you know that that's gonna make him angry,
Yeah.
then you're just gonna say, and it's always gonna be for somebody else, I guess. But is that fit into the anxious part of things
It-
too? Where
it definitely
if your
could
kid
be.
is only doing something so they don't have to hear it from the parent, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely,
Alright.
absolutely. Look, I'm a recovering people pleaser myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes I relapse, and I have to, remind myself of taking care of myself and having healthy boundaries with myself, because I haven't always had healthy boundaries in my relationships. I've always been the, sure, I'll do that person, until I'm like sitting in the audience and everyone on the stage is having fun and I'm the only one left in the audience going like, wait, what have I done? Oh, I created the show, but I would never allow myself to be part of the show, right?
Yeah.
Like I would be the one like promoting everyone, but putting myself last. And so I think having healthy boundaries and not being a total people pleaser, there's a difference between people pleasing and creating joy in somebody or helping somebody, right? When you put yourself last and you're compromising your own health and wellness and values, that's an unhealthy boundary.
I'm taking a little note here because I'm coming back to a question then later. We talked, I think at the time when, the last time we talked, I'll go another parenting question.
Totally.
How's the gymnastic experience been? Initially, when we first met, it was like, this is a new thing.
Yeah.
Our mutual friend goes there, and I know that the daughter used to come and work out with her brothers, and they're all awesome. I always enjoyed them.
Yeah.
They were always sweet to Emmy.
Cool,
My daughter, because she was little, she misses them. She's like, hey, they come in. One's calling out. You know,
I
everybody's
should bring
coming
my daughter. She loves kids.
Yeah,
So,
they
there we go.
whenever. We'll figure out a day
And
for
you can
that.
push her.
And then you and Marisa can,
go.
you can chat about all your stuff.
And then you can be
Emily
like,
and-
now I know your mom is trying to
I
push
know
you
your
too
mom's a little
hard.
crazy. I'm not crazy like her. I know we're friends, but where was I going there? Gymnastic experience, right? Is she involved in anything else?
No, she's not, because it is 20 hours a week. So yeah, so it's a lot of practice. I love, she loves it.
Love it enough. What is the program? Where is she?
She loves it. She goes to Co-op, which is
In Easton or
in
Palmer or
Easton.
something,
It's
or?
in Easton, Palmer. Yeah, she loves it. I love it for her because she has such a bond with her teammates. They are so incredible. The support that these young ladies provide to one another. There is just not even one bad seed in the group, in the whole group. And we're talking from the littles level 2, which is the lowest level, to level 10, which is the highest level. So like oldest is like 16 or 15, something like that. They love each other. They support each other. And I find that to be the best part of the entire experience. As expensive and a second mortgage as it is, I'll pay that any day for happiness and the support and the encouragement. And they do mental training. I love it. I love it for her, and she loves it. So it's a win, win.
20 hours.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
That's like 4-hour sessions, right?
That's 4-hour sessions.
Is it Monday to Friday?
So, and let me,
I guess it depends,
watch me
right?
get all
It
my
depends.
math wrong.
Right?
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
it's all right,
different.
whatever.
But
It
yeah,
depends. She has weekend stuff. I
yeah,
assume,
she
and all
does.
that?
She
Yeah.
does.
All right.
Yeah.
And then with the work that you do, experiences you had, I've been thinking about this lately. It's like, why am I interested in doing some of the stuff that I do? Like, everything kind of shifted from, I used to do a lot of personal training with adults. Everything just seems to be geared towards like youth fitness now in the afternoons. And a lot of it has to do with like my daughter kind of comes along and she's a part of it. But I'm thinking like, why? Then I'm thinking back to like when I was growing up, and people always say like, be the person that you wish you had. As
that's why I'm a therapist.
That's what I was going to ask. Is that something that you do? Is that like, so everything that you're doing now is like...
I wanted to be the person I never had, because back then mental health was not a thing. You were not allowed to, you weren't allowed to be sad. You weren't allowed to have depressive thoughts. And I did. And when I outwardly expressed that, it was like, no, you're fine, Megan. You have a big house and a white picket fence. You should be happy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. So I wasn't allowed to be a human being. And so I always thought I've got to be somebody that I never had. And so that's why I do what I do. And I think that, certainly I hear what you're saying about, I used to think I only want to work with adults because kids are just crazy, right? And they still are, but in a wonderful way.
Yeah.
And I think that the impact that we can have
I'm
is
playing
awesome.
games in PE, and I'm like, did I just not enjoy myself as a child? That's where I'm at right now.
But
I'm like, did I just not ever let loose as a kid and actually have fun? Because that was kind of like my personality. Like I'd always kind of, I'm like, is that what's going on here? Am I like a 38-year-old trying to act like a...
Yes, but there's something so incredibly, genuine about that. And, I was thinking about this on my ride over, and I was thinking,
right?
it is a nice ride, And I was thinking to myself, there's a word that I can say that I would describe you as, and it would just be consistently you. Like, you've never wavered from who you are. So whether you apply that to an adult population or a kid population, you are so consistently you, which is really comforting to people. We like to know what to expect as humans. I always know what I get from you, Chris. I always know. It's been all these years, and it's like, you're Chris.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm doing this, by the way, too, is just to like, I think I described it once as like under the guise of work, where you could actually just get to hang out with somebody.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Like, hey, look at schedule, and it's not like you want to
Yes.
just go get coffee because like that's
Yeah.
weird. So we could do something like this and catch up, and it's been nice seeing and doing things like this.
Well, it's
anyway.
been nice reading your blogs too.
Yeah, I'm trying to pump those out more.
Yeah,
I went on such a hiatus of like
I did
don't
too.
know what to do.
I know.
All
It's
I
hard.
did, I was just doing work, and I was
know.
like, is it? But then it's like, is this what I'm going to do forever? Like, is this it?
It's hard. It's
And
hard
it wasn't.
to focus.
It wasn't like positive feelings,
Right, right,
associated
right.
with that. It's
Yep,
like
no, I
there's
gotcha.
always something that's
Yeah.
like, what the? You don't know what you're missing, but it's like I
Yeah.
want to be doing more. So actually talking to humans in person is actually something that I found some joy with, which I would relate to the kid that you mentioned earlier that is like a little bit isolated. Unless it was like my good group of friends.
Yeah.
Or, unless it was in my barn,
Yep.
I'm probably comfortable talking.
Your comfort zone.
But
Yeah, it's cool.
Which is so that was and then the social anxiety part of things too. I guess kind of
Yep.
tying with that now. So that was a big question that we had, and we kind of touched on it working with this group again. But like, say you have like a middle school age kid, a high school age kid, or even younger coming up with you, and they're like, I'm in a class, like say it's gymnastics, right? And
Yeah.
I want to go talk to these girls or these guys in my class, but like, I just freak out and I don't know what to do. Is there any guidance or? No?
That's a tough one because I think it does come down to like, am I comfortable with who I am, and do I have to change me in order to fit in? And those years are tough years, and so for the kids that are like really individual, look, the reality is this, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're not going to fit in, and the kids are not going to like them. And I give that message. I'm straight up with my
So
people.
can you repeat that?
So if they are like a true individual and they're not like, trendy, they don't have the Stanley Cup, and if they want friends, I tell them all the time, look, you be you, but you're not always going to be accepted by the group because you don't quote unquote fit in. And that is the reality. Now I tell them, don't change, but just understand you might not be accepted by the group if you don't have your Stanley Cup. But I don't want any kid to think that that's a negative. I don't.
Do you ever ask them, why do you want to be a part of that group? Is that part of it?
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, well, I want friends. I'm like, well, it's hard to find your tribe when you're that young. As adults, we can go wherever we want. We can come to a gym and be like, these are my people. Those kids are exposed to the same kids all the time in and out. So it is hard. So sometimes kids do have to, and that's why I support having one Stanley Cup, not 7. By the way, we have a fake one. 5 Below.
Oh, nice.
I didn't spend the money to get the real one.
What do they even cost?
I don't even know.
People have
now,
those mugs from like the 70s.
I-
Stanley's a good company.
right? I know.
Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So
you would tell a
that's
kid
tough.
like, hey, so what I heard there was like, one is like, why? What's your motivation for wanting to
right,
talk?
exactly.
Right? But you also bring back like the core values thing too.
Right.
You don't want to lower.
Right.
You don't want to become a different person to
Yeah.
fit in with the group. You still have to
Right.
be yourself, and you have to find your group.
Right, because here's what's happened, right? Like, let's say I look at this group and they're smokers, right? So, and I'm like, all right, I better start smoking if I want to fit in. And then I'm like taking puffs, which by the way, I've never smoked a day in my life. So like, I wouldn't
I don't
even
even
know
think it's
what,
cool to
right? I
smoke.
don't even know what to do,
Is it
right?
cool to smoke right now?
I have no idea. But what vape? I don't
Oh, yeah,
even know.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know the lingo.
The vapors, yeah.
So, and I go join the smokers. How long am I going to last there anyway before they find out I'm fake? Not
Yeah.
long, right? And then I'm going to get kicked out anyway. So I have to be me. And if that group is going to take me in, the smokers, and say, hey, cool, you can hang with us and not smoke, then that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't want to smoke to go fit in with the smokers. So
Yeah.
that's like the kids, but I tell them straight up, you may not be accepted, but don't change who you are. Just continue to seek out opportunities to find your tribe. And that brings me back to the gymnastics thing. That's why I love this group of girls. They're all accepted. Nobody looks at one another and says like, oh, you're nerdy, you can't come here. Oh, you don't fit in. It's not like that at all. And at school, it is.
I was just thinking about when I was growing up. Like, just not nice words being used.
You mean you not
Oh, I
being
don't
nice
know.
to the
No,
other
no,
kids?
no,
I'm
just in
kidding,
general,
I'm
you know,
kidding.
like-
yeah, I know.
I can imagine how, I
know.
don't even know what goes on these days, but
It's not nice. I mean,
I'm
there's
sure they're
still.
not calling somebody a dork, I'm sure there's probably
Oh, it's a lot more,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, a little
fresh
more
than that.
nastier.
Yeah.
Wow. But I like that messaging. That's the thing too that I have a hard time with, is like the feeling that like you have to be accepted.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
But that's not apparently advice that people or parents want to
No,
hear it for their
parents
child.
don't want to hear it. You're right.
They want the child to be accepted
You're
no
right.
matter what.
You're right. You're right.
It doesn't work that way,
No.
unfortunately. And I don't.
That's
So-
a hard message, and I never tell, and I don't give parenting advice. I don't. So I don't tell anyone how to parent their child, but I will say, like, okay, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to have you manage the expectations, or I'm just going to tell you what's going to happen. You can do what you want with the information I give you, but here's what is going to happen, with your kids. So I have parents that are like, my child does not want friends, and I'm like, that's okay. Does your child find that to be a problem? No, but I want them to have friends. Like, well, not everyone wants that. Not every kid wants that. They really don't.
You know what? I mean, I could speak on this. I don't know who else. Oh, the parent that is pushy in that regard. I think anytime that I was growing up, and if I didn't want to do something, wear an outfit, like my brother would want to wear trendy stuff, I would just want to wear athletic wear. So if it was like, hey, put on this nice stuff, if it became a big deal, then I just pushed back harder.
Yep.
There was there was twins in here once, and one super outgoing, the other I had to be sneaky and just kind of like, hey, you want to go try it,
Right.
Stuff like that when nobody was around. By the end of the camp, she absolutely loved it, the quiet one, right?
Yeah.
But then, I hear family like, oh, she's just the shy one, or she doesn't want, and I'm like, hey, I wouldn't do that because
Right,
like
I know.
my personal experience. I just talked about myself. I didn't really want to tell them anything. I was like, all I know is anytime somebody was like, oh, he's just shy, then I wouldn't talk, or whatever, and then the parent talks for them, and then I think it just leads into
Not only that, but then sometimes it's like
the kid accepts it then.
And then the kid was like, well, oh wait, I have to be the shy one. I can't ever break out of that, shell.
You have something to say, but you're not gonna because
right, exactly, because I have to be
and
the
that
shy
feeling
one.
is terrible. I had
It
that
is,
feeling
it
growing
is.
up. Like,
Oh,
yeah, that was actually awful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
cry.
That's okay. I'm here. I can help.
Does anybody want to hear? Yeah. No, I'll just
walk
keep
you
it to
through it.
myself. That's why I have those bouts of dizziness I was telling you about.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
But the social anxiety stuff too. Then you have something. Is that something you're talking about? Is this like is it a secret thing? Is
No,
it,
not well. I haven't really shared it much because it's not rolled out. But it's
Right.
an app and it's called Calm Frame, and it's my voice because I do a lot of guided imagery in my sessions where I walk people through really slow guided imagery where I take you through a scene, and most times people start closing their eyes and they're like, you need to record your voice. So I started something with that, and I have a new venture. It'll be rolled out on Apple and Android. I don't know when yet. I'm still waiting for Apple developers and Android. But yeah, so it's gonna walk people through grounding exercises for panic attacks. So if you're having a panic attack, you can just push the app and it's my voice saying, telling you what to do. Or if you're having trouble going back to sleep, you turn on the app, and it's really just like a 3-minute segment. So it's not gonna talk to you all night long and keep you up. It's walking you through a scene that'll calm your mind, redirect your thinking, and get you back to a calm state. And I'm some for social anxiety. What else do I have? I'll have some stuff for kids. So that'll be, I don't have a date as to when it's
it's
coming
cool.
out.
I like it.
But
It's getting out of your mind, right?
Yeah, totally.
Get out of your mind.
Redirecting your thought.
All right.
Yep.
Get into the body is something I've
Yep.
heard that I don't know if that's just like a universal phrase, but get out of your mind, get in your body. Start thinking about your breathing.
Yes.
Start thinking about not all of those thoughts in your head.
Exactly.
That was something that I thought was great, is to see like it's like a replacement or a distraction, where 5 minutes less in this zone, in this negative zone.
Totally. I
is
believe
huge.
in
And
it.
if you could do that 12 times a day,
I
that's an
believe
hour,
in it.
and that's 1 hour.
Less of anxiety that you're experiencing, 100%.
That has got to literally add years on your life. Probably,
Absolutely, I agree.
So when you roll that out, if anybody has a request for a male voice, can I apply for a job or no?
You know what's
Is there a
funny?
thing?
Here's
Do you
the
have
thing.
any? Do you need a voiceover person?
Here's the thing. Just like you're having me as a guest on your podcast, I'm all about it. I have some people in mind, so that answer is yes.
You have to write the script though.
Hey, it's a collaboration.
Okay.
I think life is a collaboration, and it's all about making connections, and it's all about remembering the genuine people that you feel fit your core values, right? So I keep talking about those core values because it's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I was looking at my notes that I wanted to talk about. There's another thing that came up last time, and it almost went with the social anxiety part of it. I was trying to think of some other topics that might come up. For some reason, I just had the kid stuff in mind, so sorry about that. But
That's cool.
We can dip into some adult topics then. Bullying was something that we came up before, right?
Oh, man.
And there's a lot of different words. I was just talking to the guy, which is funny. West Morris is where would you say it's a
Where
school?
I went
it's
to
a
high
town?
school, West Morris.
Literally
Yeah.
spells it the same way. So I was talking
Yeah.
about West Morris, and I was explaining to him this concept was lost on him. A couple years ago, the idea, kids are like, that's targeting. And I'm like, what? We're playing a game of tag.
Yeah.
Somebody goes after somebody, right? He's targeting me. I'm like, yeah, it's tag. We're playing a game that it's like sharks and minnows that has like five.
Right.
It eventually becomes 5-on-1.
Yeah.
They're targeting me. I know it's 5-on-1. They're supposed to. They're the sharks. I don't know what to do about that, right? A lot of this, we had a thing yesterday. It's 3-on-2.
Yeah.
So the 3 have to go and pick up a flag, we'll say, like capture the flag style. The 2 have to tag them with a pool noodle. If they do that, then they're out. They have to run back, tag somebody, right? So I'm like, we have to get out of the victim thinking
Right, I see.
If they come after me, I'm occupying one person. That leaves my two teammates to go against one over there. We have the numbers advantage. What you did is get hit. It hurts your feelings. It doesn't feel good to have somebody just chase after you, right? But what you did actually helped your team out. You know, things like that. So we're trying to reframe some things that are not like negative. Like it's still.
Well, I have bad news for you, Chris.
What? Am I doing it wrong?
Bad news. Kids, it's real. They do bully. Like that is
a
real thing, right? And so it's not, sometimes it's a perception in the kid's head, but
I guess I was talking about targeting in my tag game.
So the victim, I like what you're doing, because as somebody that, you know, I have the victims, quote unquote, come to me for therapy. I would rather work with the victim than the bully, because at your age, still bullies, right? At my age, still bullies. You think that it's going to go away. There are women that bully each other at my age. It doesn't end. So I always work with the victim, if you will, to say, like, you don't have to accept the way they're treating you. But again, it's a hard thing as a kid, because kids don't want to be chastised. They don't want to be further bullied. They don't want to be further, you know, targeted. And so it's a tough one. And the schools have such little ability to really do anything, because if you're at a lunch table, what are you going to do? The teacher's going to stand over the lunch table to hear what's going on. So a lot of unsupervised times is when it happens. It's hard to.
Do you think it's happening more now than ever?
I do.
I guess there's more opportunity, right, with online stuff.
Especially online, you forget it. Yeah, absolutely.
Because we would just, you know, whatever you did after school was maybe with your peers, right? You're probably not getting made fun of by your peers, unless there's those cases, right, where there's that one kid that I feel like chooses the wrong group, maybe for the wrong reasons, you know. But now it's like the opportunity for somebody to send you something evil is there 24/7.
Yes, it is.
Which is worrisome.
It's and it happens all the time. And you know, parents, you know, even you can press charges, you know, a lot of times if it gets to that case. I always say involve the police, because they will go and knock on the door of, you know, whoever's IP address.
They don't want to do that either, you know. So that's
if
like,
it gets to that
no,
point,
they want to, but that's not why they got into that field too, you know.
Oh,
so they're gonna
I
go
see
there
what you're
and
saying.
they're going to be like,
they're
probably not going to be patient with the bully, so to speak,
right?
And they're probably not going to.
But I think always, you know, involve authorities, because that sometimes will, not all the time, but sometimes will scare the kids into stopping the online stuff.
Do you think that ever then, well, I guess it does, right? The kid will be like, yeah, you're tattletale, blah, 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 that kind of crap.
Well, sometimes it just comes with, you know, hey, we investigated this online. We saw this online. It doesn't have to come from the other kid, that can be like a way of, you know, navigating the situation, rather than, you know, you going to the other kid's parents.
Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, I'm going to defend my kid. I mean, certainly if she's wrong, she's wrong. Right, but
never yours. Your child is, I'm just kidding.
She's like a mini me. She's too nice to do it. Unfortunately, she's way too nice.
I was gonna say though, like with the parent-to-parent thing, I've heard that too before. Where if something does happen, is that something that you would ever recommend of one parent? Say something happens at the bus stop, and a parent asks you for advice.
Scary.
Is that something that you want to?
I'm always like, oh man, I don't like that question.
Idea, right?
I think it's a really tricky question. I don't like the question. I think that
when
it comes to safety, I think when it comes to safety, yeah, you address parents. But you know, I always ask the kids, and I ask my kid, do you want me to intervene? And if the answer is yes, we talk about how do you want me to be a part of that process. And if it's no, I kind of sit back until it comes to a safety issue, or until I start to see like a real change in a kid's behavior. But I always ask the kid, how do you want us? We're a team. You know, we are going to do this together. As a therapist, I'm like, we need to come up with a plan. It's not my ideas. Because if that kid doesn't feel comfortable with the intervention, it's going to blow up, and that's going to be worse for the kid. You're going to make it worse.
Tough job.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it is.
It's a never-ending.
It is. It's really hard.
There's a man that I know. I every so often we'll do like an at-home workout, and I looked at his office. Psychiatrist. He's got about 28 years of
stuff
worth of diploma. He's in his 70s, but just the amount of education and stuff, and the continual training, and then over the decades, there's new advancements and new things going on. It's like, I don't know. You're gonna have it's a tough job for you. I was talking, and I think a lot about, I guess my age group, right? Deaths of despair, alcohol-related death, suicide, and then also it's like a male predominant 38 to, I don't know the age group, 35 to 50 range or something like that. The numbers have been spiking. Do you have any, like when you work with the adult population, have you been noticing trends in that? Like, is times tougher? Like, is people struggling? What's...
I don't know to be honest, I don't know the data on it. I can speak on my observations. I think that, what we all, and maybe it's just my heightened awareness of like the fragility of life and just sort of the process of aging and understanding, what goes on with people as we get older. Life gets harder. We have more responsibilities. It's supposed to get easier, but unfortunately the responsibilities pile up. The negative experiences pile up. And so I think that the awareness that we all have is just more evident. And so how do we deal with that? Well, a healthy way is going for a run. Sure, I can deal with that healthy, but what if somebody doesn't run? What if they're like, well, all I have is alcohol, right? So it's hard to manage when you don't have a lot of, strategies to manage that. And if you don't have a solid support system, that's trying to, say, hey, you're better than this. Come on, you're good. Let's work on this together. Like, let's not turn toward that. But, addiction is real. It's real. And people think like, oh, just stop smoking. It is just not
I wanted
easy.
To bring up too, that
It is not easy.
Yeah, that whole thing. And everybody has their thing, right? Some could be worse. So it could be eating to soothe.
Yep.
It could be the cigarette thing. Yeah. And I did ask that the last guest that I had, he, credits my brother for kind of getting him off the death door with the opioids, right? Yeah. So he's a public speaker and stuff. So I asked him that. I was like, are you ever at a point where you would say like, I was an addict? And he was just like, I don't think so. Like, cause he still has it. He's still like,
Yeah, absolutely.
His example was I ate 3/4 of a tray of brownies, It's like, if I'm going in, I'm going in. And I relate with that too. I mean, I am the same way. I mean, I have the discipline not to do something, but if I go in, I go in. And, if I decide I'm gonna eat, cupcakes, I'm gonna eat a lot. But anyway, where was I going with that? I don't know. We're talking about.
Well, you were just talking about like
people not they're not having a tool. Not having tools to help. Like you have the walk and talk thing, right? Just moving the body is probably a good thing. But you have to convince somebody to go for a walk. That is not easy.
Well,
not with you, just in general.
Sure.
Like the
you're
general
right.
population. Hey,
Dude,
you're feeling
right.
depressed. My neighbor. This is not a real story, by the way. So I'm not talking about my neighbors. But say somebody lives close by and they're like, I feel this, that. I'm like, you can't just say like, why don't you just go for a walk?
No,
why don't you just exercise?
So here's
it doesn't
what
go over well.
I know. Here's what I say. Because I do have some people that don't leave the house. I'm like, all right, your goal today is to just open your blind. Just look outside. Baby steps, man. Because that's what. And then maybe the next day is your goal is to open your window, smell the fresh air, and then it's just stand outside for a minute, and then it's walk to the end of your driveway. It's never like, all right, well, why don't you go for a 10-mile walk? It's always tiny,
just set the timer, 30 minutes.
Tiny. And people say like, well, I totally didn't do it today. Well, 6 days out of 7 is better than opposite. One day, if you do it one day out of the week where you never did it last week, that's better
huge
than
win.
It's a huge win.
Because that's 52 days of the year. If you only do once a week, you went from 0 to 52. If you do it once a week.
Absolutely.
That process that you said, you had 4 steps, right? Walking to the window, open, whatever. Smelling the fresh air. That could take months, right?
Yes, could take months.
So it's not like, hey, this is what you're gonna do for the first 4 days.
No.
Yeah.
Could take months. But you're still chipping, you're still working in the
working on it, and just talking about how those baby steps are totally progress. So when you're born, you're what, like 17 inches, right? Did I watch you grow all the centimeters of the years of your life? No, but look, how tall are you? Well,
You're not
I'm not
exactly.
tall. I'm 5'7"-ish.
You're a bad example.
So would you say 17 inches? I'm 67.
But I didn't watch you and take away of centimeters all of your life, but you grew, right? So I always use that example. You may not see the growth right before your eyes, but time will pass and then you'll realize the growth that you made.
Yeah, good. I like that. Is that like kind of behavior therapy? Is that what that is, kind of?
Yeah,
Baby
you
steps
know,
or not?
Sure.
That's what I see. It's
don't
like,
know.
hey,
You know, I don't like to like use terms, and I don't pathologize
Right.
any people. Like, I don't tell anybody you have this disorder. I just tell everyone you have human disorder. We all have times where we're anxious. We all have times where we're depressed. We all have a lot of experience in life that add up to bringing us to where we are today. And you kind of talked about that earlier, about life experiences bringing us
Yeah.
to like where, you know, what we do
Yeah,
today. And, you know, maybe people had, you know, severe trauma. Maybe people didn't have severe trauma, but their take on whatever that experience was not good. So we all have to, you know, take all of that accountable. And as you get older, you know, as I said, life isn't easy. We experience a lot of stuff, and it's not easy for the human brain to process and remain happy and always rely on healthy coping strategies.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tell people, like, you don't have to have a healthy coping strategy today. You know, you can lie in bed all day, but you got to get up tomorrow. You have to get up tomorrow. You can't do it every day. You can't have the unhealthy stuff all the time, all day. That's when it's bad. But once in a while, I mean, look, sometimes you got to have 5 cupcakes, not 0.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's this story. I always think about it, and I was trying to reiterate this when I was talking about some of your. What did you ask me? Whatever you asked me, the core value question.
Yeah, core
You
values.
stumped me.
Oh.
But there's these 2 people, Magda and Andre Chakme. So World War II's going on. They were in France. They were, I think, Andre, the husband, was a pastor. They funneled like 5,500 Jewish refugees basically through the church and all that. The night that the Nazis came to their door to arrest Andre, the husband, Magda served them dinner, the Nazi guards. And when they asked her why, and she's like, it's dinner time, they're human beings.
Wow.
And, you know, she felt that just because that they were humans, they might be doing evil today, but they could be redeemed. Everybody that is still
Wow,
alive,
that's
everybody that's still a
amazing.
human. Yeah, I thought that was an incredible thing. So
yeah.
that's what I was trying to reiterate with. I was trying to sum up with what you do is like I don't know if it's redemption, I don't know what it is, but like no matter what, that human being still has the ability to come back from anything.
Right. Yeah.
And just believing in the person that, you know, what they're doing now doesn't necessarily mean
That's
what
it
they're
forever.
gonna be,
Yep.
you know? I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's a great way to put it.
So we
Great
talked.
way.
So that was one. You don't label stuff. You made fun of my height. Was that a bullying tactic? Or no? Was that technically?
I think
I?
that
It
was
was
a term of endearment.
term
No,
of
I
endearment.
didn't. It wasn't
Is
a
there
term.
anything else? Last time I gave you 3 questions to ask me,
Oh,
but this time I didn't bring it up. So if you don't have
No.
any, that's fine. But if you could think of something, let's see. Be the person.
I can.
What do you got?
Chris,
Give it to me.
we're gonna visit your core values, so we're gonna
Oh,
make you
no.
really think. So,
Can I
because you
steal
know,
the Quaker values again or no?
no, you cannot. No cheating.
All right.
Yeah, I do. I want to, you know, bring that to your awareness, because I think that, you know, you're somebody that does really think about life. You're somebody that does think about your impact on other people, and I appreciate that, and I know other people do too. So, you know, what are they? What are your core values? Let's talk about, you know, 2 or 3 of them.
So if you used hard work, I'm not taking that one, but I would
No,
use
okay.
that. I think most of my time, so like I said that I was kind of quiet and shy growing up, and I wasn't always comfortable. So I think as I got into my 20s, and probably when we first met, LA Fitness days, like I would read a lot, partly because I don't know if it was like I felt like an imposter or I just needed ammo to talk to people.
Yeah.
So like I try to make a point to always learn, but then like the learning is like in a way to connect with people.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
I can't, there's so many people, like I was just talking about, I'm reading about the 1800s now.
Yeah, that's
The
awesome.
American Indian, right? I'm randomly talking to somebody at my daughter's school, after school, we're having this conversation, she's like, oh my God, you know, like she's from Canada and there's all this horrific stuff that happened in the era that she was born, but I never would have had that conversation if I
Right,
never
had you
actively
not,
tried to
yeah.
do that. So I don't know if that's a core value, but just trying to be,
Yeah, learning. Yeah, of course.
just like learning
Yeah,
is
growing.
one.
Growth. Yeah.
Growing, and then growing in a way that then you could then, I don't know, share or connect with people, I think is one
Connection,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, I try to treat I think the blank slate thing is something that is a core value where, like, I'm not going to judge people based off of anything that has ever happened before. Any decision that was made was what they felt was needed to be made in that moment, even if it
That's
turned out to
awesome.
be terrible. I try to do that.
That's awesome.
It's not always true, and part of it
Sure, but
was
you're
like
human.
with life experiences, right? It's like I was very judgmental. You know, I had a brother that was addicted, but then at the time I'm drinking on the weekends, right? And
Yeah.
oh, he's blah, blah. But then eventually I was like, I am a hypocrite. You know, I'm doing the same stuff. It's just not. It's a different substance, I guess we could say. But like, I'm still in like a little bit of a trap. So, so I don't know. Where was I going there with that?
So you look back on your experience and you're like, well, if I know that I don't need to be judged based on what I'm doing right now, then I need to look at other people like that too.
And you need to be able to look at yourself too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whatever was going on,
Absolutely.
there's something in me. You know,
Yeah.
this lady said this
Yeah.
once, and I don't go to church. And I said something to her once, and she was like, "Well, that's the Holy Spirit talking to you." And I was like, "Wait a
No, it's
second."
not.
I was like, "Is it?" I was like, "Is it?" But I always had this thing. I don't know if it's a conscious or something, right? I don't know if you studied stuff like this before, but you know, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I think you always kind of know what's right and what's not.
Yeah.
And there's a good chunk of my earlier years where I just was not in a good spot. You know,
Sure.
you weren't always satisfied with or happy about something. So I always felt like something always prevented me from like I've tried to have a downward spiral many of times, but something always kind of
I see what
prevented
you're
it.
saying.
You know, like
Yeah,
there was always something. I was
Yep,
just able to
yep.
pull the brakes back and be like,
Yeah,
don't do it.
yep,
Or I met
yep,
somebody
yep.
like I'm sure if I met somebody that I'm like Marissa's great, she doesn't partake in anything, like never drank, never, you know, wanted to have a glass of wine or something, right? But if I was with somebody that was the exact opposite influence, I think I would get caught up in that. Like I talked about the cupcakes and stuff, you know, I talked about that. I'm like, I think I could be swayed. I think I could be swayed. And if I am swayed in a way, it could, you know, you
Yeah,
could be going,
I think
you could dive
eventually,
in.
so it's a pendulum, right? I think you would eventually wind up at you.
Some people don't get the chance.
No, you're right.
You know,
You're absolutely
some
right.
people,
You're right.
The pendulum takes them so far, and they maybe aren't alive
But you
anymore,
do
too.
a lot of self-reflecting, and I think that comes from just your disposition. I think you're just, that's just who you are. Your nature is, you know, I want to learn, I want to grow as a human. Maybe you didn't always have that. Maybe your brother's death did spark that in you. I don't know. I tend to think that experience maybe elevated it. I think you were just always kind of the way you are.
Yeah,
And I
think you're right there.
Yeah, I do.
Because when I was talking about that lady saying about something guiding me,
Yeah,
you know, and I don't know what it was, but there was always something there that you always kind of knew what was right. So then when you didn't do what was right, that would then make you feel
weigh
even
on
worse.
you.
Yeah. That was always around, always.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like you could just say like it's always been that way, but
The Chris
why?
factor.
Why does a 7-year-old that way?
Yeah. No,
And
I
was talking
definitely
to
think
Mom
that
yesterday,
some
and she's
people
like,
just.
This girl excels, but her goal for this year was just to be better. One word, right? And the mom's like, I have no idea where this stuff comes from. 2 kids are total opposites.
Yeah.
One of them is just
Right,
always trying
yeah.
to be better, always like a tough critic, just harsh on themselves. Doesn't know where. It's a kid. Like, where does that begin? Where does
Right,
that start?
yeah.
Why does it start? I don't know. I think I had a little bit of something comparable to that. Does that answer the core values, kind of, sort of?
Yeah, I think I do. You know, you want to grow and learn.
I want to have some freedom to kind of do whatever. I always had that aspect too, right? So I always kind of want to be in control of, I don't know,
Freedom and control.
control my destiny.
I
Does that make sense?
mean, to a certain extent, I think we all are, right? We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we like to be in control. We like to, our brains, you know, first and foremost, our brains are there to, you know, make our eyes blink and our hearts pump and breathe and stuff. That's their main function. But second, you know, our brains like to predict what's going to happen next. That's what our brain does. So like it's like a mental metabolism where you spend time trying to figure out, if you have an experience, where did I have this experience before and what do I do with it now? So it's kind of like, how do our experiences back allow our brains to predict what's going to happen next? And so we as humans like that element of control. Most of us like to know, well, how is my day going to, you know, look? And what am I going to do today? And how many people are going to be there later? Most of us like that, you know, knowledge of you know, and comfort of control.
I just thought of a question for some reason too. What is, you know, when like there's some tension going on, right? Say it's a family thing and nobody's talking but then somebody walks in the room and you feel it. What is that?
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Family.
No, because
messed
it's
up
that,
families.
well, no, it's that energy, right? People are,
Yeah,
you might
yeah.
talk to somebody and they'd
But
be like,
Chris, let me
you
tell
feel the
you.
energy, right?
I'm going to tell you.
What? What do you got?
Yeah, no, I think it's the Chris factor here. I don't think everyone notices that. I've got to tell you, not everyone notices that. You do, because you like that connection with other people. Not everyone gets that.
Do you?
I do, yeah.
You
yeah,
feel
absolutely.
like your heart rate or something going?
I
Or like
absolutely
something's
do.
about to go down?
When I walk in a room, I'm always like, all right, who's feeling what? Who can I talk to? And how's this person? And oh my gosh, that person looks sad. I've got to go over there. I'll just be in random
But
stores.
what about say this person and this person don't get along and you're out at a party together and you have a feeling, or maybe you're in the middle of it, I don't even know what, but like somebody comes in and all of a sudden nobody says anything to each other yet, but you know that those two, they're not vibing, and you can kind of feel that.
They're not vibing. Again, I think you pick up on
All right,
things. I don't
fine.
think everyone
I was
does.
hoping you had some great answer for
Oh
me.
man,
Does it exist?
magic.
Because people talk about that, yeah, they're like, and then when you start talking about energy and stuff like that, people look at you like you got.
Well, yeah, I'm
not
really,
everybody, not me. I don't care
Hey,
anymore.
I'm real
I don't care
careful
about anything.
about, when I talk about, topics that people feel strongly about,
Yeah.
because I think everyone has their belief system. And I really think that that's awesome. And that guides them, whether it be religion, whether it be a diet plan, whether it be a workout plan, people like that guidance. So sometimes people look to a certain, thing, if you will, for guidance. And some people are not religious, but they're spiritual. And so I like to respect their belief system and speak to that system without giving my own personal. Now, sometimes when I have somebody that, talks all the time, I'm like, wow, we're totally connected on this one. We have the same belief system. And so I'm going to share my view too.
Okay.
I do talk a lot about the universe and kind of like if you look at the universe, meaning if you're always looking down and you're walking around, you're not going to notice what's in front of you. You're not. But if you're looking outside, up and around and to the side, saying like, what is going to come at me today? What do I need to notice today? There's always something that's going to come right at you that you're going to make sense of. I don't care if it's a leaf on the ground. Whatever it is, if you are open to that concept of saying like, what is going to come at me today and what am I going to learn about somebody, something, myself, or experience, it's there. You just gotta walk with your head up and your eyes open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It's like having those conversations when you could be talking and I would just be thinking about what I'm going to be doing, for the next
I think I was just watching.
2 hours.
We were just experiencing
So
that.
what did you just say? No, I'm just it's like, oh, is there birds in here? No.
I think you were saying like, what is the message this bird, and it's gonna poop on your head.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
My cat was out there earlier. I don't know if you heard.
I
you
did.
hear me?
I heard. Yes, I
was
heard
gonna
your
let him
cat.
in, but I didn't know if you had who knows? People might have an allergy of
Allergies.
some
I
sort.
don't.
You're
I
good.
don't.
Do you have animals? You don't.
I
You're
have
not
a
animal.
cat named
You have a
Pancake.
cat. Pancake.
That was next podcast. We'll talk about parenting with guilt, because that's when I purchased that cat, or I
Oh.
rescued the cat. I didn't buy it.
Cats. I mean, we have dogs too. They were just.
I know.
barking.
Well, remember how I told you I'm not an animal person?
Yeah.
Well, I bought a cat. I have an only child. Thought she knew. I keep saying bought. I rescued a cat.
Rescued
Yeah,
sounds a
because
lot
I know
better.
that's like a big thing. But yeah, she's Pancake is not my cat. I'm the only one that really takes care of her. So I might have some feelings about that. But I parented with guilt because I thought, oh, my child is an only child. She needs a cat.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get her a cat.
Why do people say, hey, your child needs somebody to play with?
Right, I know.
Why?
I know. Well, because they don't want to play with them. I don't know.
Okay, maybe that's it. It's
Did
always
I
like,
just answer
it's nice.
myself and say I don't want to play with my kid? Maybe.
Well, no, it's like everybody that's more than one. There's always that
Right,
part that's like,
there's-
oh, it's
yeah.
nice. They just go play.
Yeah,
You're
that's
like,
true.
oh, that's
It
it.
is true.
That's
It
why
is
they're
true.
trying to encourage it.
Yeah.
That number one, I didn't decide to have a child for a while. People were like, oh, you're good with kids. Why don't you have one? And it was like, I think it's just like I didn't even want an animal ever. Like I never had anything. I lived in a studio apartment. It was like a couch and a bed and a TV. Like I was like
simple
nothing.
guy.
Right. But then you have the
Now you have
responsibility
all
of a
this- yeah,
child,
that's
right?
true, yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't want that. But then I thought it would. I think I would have regretted it actually. Anyway. So you have a child, have one, and then everybody's like, hey.
Yeah. They need
So
siblings.
when are you gonna have another?
Yeah.
Like
or
why?
they're gonna be spoiled, right? Yeah.
Like how? Who?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Everyone.
So
needs
everybody
to choose
gets that
their
part-
path.
everybody gets
Yes.
that, right?
Yeah, I get it all the time. But you need to choose your path.
Is that a case where you feel like they're to punch anybody, or no? Is that just when they tell you?
You know,
What did they tell you though? What was that that got you mad?
You know, sometimes people will say like, why didn't you have a second? And I think if the question is genuine and they really want to know, I share my story. But if I think like, wait, are you like telling,
Yeah.
like, because some people are like, she's gonna be spoiled, right? Okay, why?
Spoiled with love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel bad, and this might not sound right, but our daughter's really, she's really sensitive, she's really sweet, she's awesome. And I'm like, I would feel bad if we had another kid because I wouldn't be able to give her all the attention that she gets now, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not a reason
No,
at all,
no,
but like, because she would be great. She's awesome with little kids and would probably, she like wants to have another sibling, but I'm like,
I know,
God,
my
feel
daughter
bad.
used to
That-
beg
that's
me
fine.
too.
Less time with you then, girl. What else was I just gonna say? I don't know. You got anything else to chat about?
You know,
Parent with guilt? Is that what you said?
parenting with guilt, that'll be our next topic, because that, you know, no good decision comes from parenting with guilt, because, you know, my child's a negotiator. She can negotiate a Mercedes out of me, right? Because I'll be like, well, she must need it, you know,
Yeah.
and then
She's a good kid.
yeah,
you know, she
then
did
it's
well.
like, wait a minute, you know. So sometimes, you know, I parent with guilt, and that's never a good thing, because then I cave and you know, yeah.
I think we're gonna make
We'll talk
small
all
errors,
about it.
hopefully. Small errors.
Yeah,
Nothing
yeah,
major, right?
yeah.
It's okay.
Hopefully.
If it's all within good cause.
They're still young.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what else.
Yeah,
I think we're good.
yeah, I think so too.
What about quiet? You're done? You asked me about my core values.
That's
You got
right.
anything else?
That's right. Core values.
It's been 4.5 years.
Oh man. I have
sorry.
I can have lots of.
Can
Yeah.
I say this quick?
Yeah.
Having a child,
Yes.
I have a friend that is not able to have another child.
Mhm.
So when people don't know that, they bring that up
That's
and it hurts.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think.
Yes. Yes.
So
I do agree with that.
that is something that I did when you were talking there. I was like,
Yeah.
that's something that I didn't think about until I met
Right.
somebody.
Right.
And,
I personally experienced that. Not being able to for a very long time.
Yeah.
Going through a lot of treatments in order to have my child. So I did experience that. I'm lucky to have her. But when I didn't, I felt like I may not ever.
Yeah.
And then also, I do have people that come to me for therapy that cannot. And it's
Do they feel like
tough.
just something is wrong with them?
They
and
do,
blah, blah, blah,
yeah, they take a lot of, it's tough. That's tough to answer, because the reality is, what do I share with them when they say, I'm gonna die alone? I can't give them
Yeah.
another answer. Yeah, they might.
But the reason
So-
to have a child is not to keep you company, so you don't die
Sure,
alone
sure,
either,
but
you
I
know?
think like that's, you know, sometimes,
get-
you know, where their mind goes. And
Yeah.
it's sad, because, you know, a lot of human beings want to nurture somebody or something. So
Mhm.
whether it be an animal or another human, that's you know, there's tons of people in this world, right? So a lot of people have that desire to raise another human, and a lot of people, you know, grow up saying like, all I want to do is be a mom or a dad. So yeah, it's hard to not have that.
Right. I changed the subject there quick. Did you
It's
have
all
another
good.
one for me?
Chris, you made me forget.
Good.
Yeah, all
It's
right.
probably a hard
No,
hitter.
we're good. We're
All right,
good.
thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for
That
coming
was the
on.
wrong. I don't know. Did we do the wrong
What do
thing?
you want, a turkey? Anyway, I'll see you later. Thanks, everybody.